Hello, good evening, everybody. I hope you guys have been having a wonderful week so far. I want to welcome you to the Mental Wellness Sanctuary with your host, yours truly, Francis McMiller, licensed mental health therapist here in Jacksonville, Florida, you guys. Give you guys a few minutes to pop on. Hoping I'm not before you very long. This is not one of my typical lives that I'm doing. I'm actually going to be doing a little bit more talking than usual without hi everybody, because it's something I want you guys to think about and to consider, and it's actually something that's really important for those of you that are planning to join me for my mental wellness workshop, my self-care embracing it from the inside out, which by the way, because there's a whole lot going on around April the 6th, I'm not really sure what that's all about, so I am going to push that event back just a week or so. So be looking for the new flyers that are going to be circulating out for you that are interested in joining us. Just remember, this is going to be, this show today is going to be talking about how a couple of things, but it's going to be talking about how it's going to be tied into some of the things that we will cover, or one of the topics that I think is very important that we will cover during that workshop. So it's not going to be in great detail, but you know how I am. I like to get you guys thinking about different things. So again, welcome to the Mental Wellness Sanctuary. Just keep in mind that I am actually. Oh, I will put. We will put that information in the chat later on, you guys, as I'm making edits to the flyer to decide on the new date. I think on April the 6th, there's a couple of vending events going on. There is a seafood festival, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple of other things going on. So I was like, oh, well, that's a pretty busy day, y'all. So I'm just gonna shift the event back some more so that way we can make sure that we y'all are in the building, because I need y'all to be in the building or online or whatever, however you're deciding to join me. I'm really looking forward to you guys being able to participate. So, just a quick reminder for those of you that are looking for counseling or coaching or consulting services with myself, as well as qualified supervisory, I am able to do that. So do keep that in mind. And of course, y'all know I got my stuff here. So don't forget, I have my journal here, Manifest. I also have my book, Mask Off, which bits and pieces of that will be tied into there as well, guys, as my affirmation card. So please don't forget that I do have those things available for you guys. But I want to go ahead and get into this topic with you guys. For those of you that are joining me, you saw the topic is who's running the show. This is I got booted, y'all. My bad. I got booted. Anyway, yes, by any means necessary. Did it bring me back on? I'm hoping it brought me back on. I think I got booted, y'all. Let me know if y'all can see me now. Um, I think I got booted. You know what? That's because I really need to say what I need to say, y'all. So hopefully y'all can see me. Um, I'm back. Great. Perfect. Awesome. So without further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and get into this topic, as I hope to not be before you very long. It is not going to take me a long time to discuss this, but I do want to bring it to your attention. So one of the things that has been coming up a lot in different seasons with different individuals at different times, I am noticing a very um, common trend when it comes to counseling and different things like that, you guys. And so, one of the biggest things with the topic for today is who's running the show, right? And what I mean by who's running the show, so when we think about our struggles, when we think about our triggers, when we think about our broken places, our unhealed spaces, that may have happened at various times in our lives, right? So, just an example, if you're somebody that experienced some childhood trauma, emotional trauma, different things like that, and it, let's say, happened at the age of 8, just going to throw a number out there. Sometimes we are stuck in those places, emotionally, or wherever that trauma lied or whatever happened, right? So, wherever that thing was that occurred, sometimes we find ourselves stuck. And so, when we are triggered by certain things, certain people, certain environments, we may see something. Sometimes it causes us to resort back to that space when we were 8 years old and we first experienced the trauma, right? And so a lot of times, even though majority of us that are joining this live are grown adults, sometimes emotionally, relationally, socially, um, even spiritually, sometimes we may be showing up as that 8 year old emotionally that was traumatized by that thing that happened. And so when I ask the question, who's running the show, that's what I would like for you guys to sit there and think about and to consider. Um, I don't think a lot of times we are aware that maybe I'll just use myself that little Francis is showing up in adult like situations. And you may be able to look back at this thing and see something along the lines with yourself where you recognize that, yes, even though you're fully a grown, maybe emotionally, maybe mentally, you may be stuck in that place where you first experienced that trauma or wherever that trauma, that hurt, that unhealed space still lies. So, what I would like for you guys to do is to begin to think about, is this something that you yourself actually struggle with? Think about things that trigger you today, whether it's personally, professionally, wherever it is, in whatever context. Think about those things now. And I want you to ask yourself a very honest question. Who is running the show? Who is showing up? Because what I'm also discovering is, let's say, for instance, that is something that your confidence is, say you have low self-confidence, and that came from some of your childhood experiences, right? And then in situations where you feel like your confidence isn't as high, whether it be big Francis that shows up who has more confidence in this particular area, more than likely it's going to be adolescent Francis or teenage Francis that's going to show up. And she's going to be the one that's running the show, meaning the behaviors, the thoughts, the choices, the decisions, all of those things are going to be directly connected to teenage Francis at that particular time, right? So when I'm asking you guys to ask yourself this question, that's what I mean. Some of us are stuck in places, depending on the trigger, depending on what it is, we're stuck operating from that place. So instead of us operating from a healed, loved, confident, um, you know, position, we retreat back to that inconfident. I don't know if they really like me. I don't know what, we respond and we behave and we make decisions and we make life choices based off of those areas. And so it's time for us to really take a deep dive into ourselves, not any surface level stuff, but really and truly making yourself, how I always say, awareness is the first step to changing. So you can't change anything you're not willing to admit or to make awareness of. So I want you guys to think about that as you're going throughout your week, because it's going to be important. I can almost guarantee you that you're going to locate a space where you're going to be able to identify that maybe a different side of you is running the show when it comes to this area. If you're somebody that struggles in relationships or whatever, just to throw that out there as an example. And let's say you're not as confident, or you may deal with and tolerate or entertain people from that younger, unhealed, broken space. which means your choices and people that you decide to connect to are not going to be great. Um, that may mean that you may entertain something that is less desirable than what you feel like you desire or deserve, and that's just an example of one area. Or it could be an example of something else a little bit different, where if you struggled, let's say in school, and you didn't always, you weren't always the smartest, you didn't always get everything together. Well, when it comes to you stepping into this place where you're having to do these tests and things like that, work wise or work related, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, oh, this is not a good area for me. I am not confident when it comes to school. I am not able to do this, that, and the third. Like, your younger self, the thoughts, the feelings, even y'all, that comes back, maybe triggers things that people said to you during that time. Things that may have offended you during that time. Sometimes we are also battling with those internal insecurities, right? And so whenever somebody plucks at one of those internal securities, or, that we're having, let's say, for instance, I'll use the example of, let's just say lately the children have been childering. That is not even a word, but I made it up. And so you have lost a little bit of confidence in your abilities to reach your kids or to parent your kids in an effective manner, right? So then let's just turn around and say that, maybe somebody says something or they make a statement or something that kind of triggers that insecurity that you have. Well, then we got to figure out who's going to be running the show, who's going to show up at that particular time. Is it going to be the person that says, oh, I know the kids are kidding and, all of that, but I am doing the best that I can with what I have. And so I'm going to continue forward. I'm going to pray and ask the Lord, the Holy Spirit, to give me clarity on how to rectify this situation. Or your offended self could turn around and begin running that show. And then guess what? You're going to run that show based off of your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your emotions, which a lot of times, if we're honest, is not even necessary, because if we would just put it in check, we could definitely show up different if we take time out to do self-evaluation about certain things. We can definitely take the time out to say, hey, chill for a moment, let me get some clarity about this, and then you get a better opportunity to decide who's going to show up. Now, this goes back to the workshop, right? Because with the workshop, we're going to be identifying these things. So, with the workshop, we're going to be identifying the things that you do externally for self care and all of that. But actually, I'm going to definitely be poking and prying, because y'all know that's what I do. I poke and pride at the things that you need to become aware about when it comes to who's running your show and who's not running your show. It's a time for us to get to this healed space, right? To get to this place where we are growing and glowing and maturing into the things and the people who we were always called to be. Um, and that is one of the things that I think is just as equally important as making sure that we are not staying in places and situations with people and things like that far too long, by choice, because we don't have enough confidence in this area, or I don't know if things are going to get much better than this, so I'm just going to settle for that. So we have to be mindful of those things, guys. So in between now and maybe, the next session, or if you guys decide to join me for the mental wellness sanctuary workshop in April, this is something that I want you to consider when it comes to your emotions, when it comes to your triggers. And let me just reiterate what triggers are, because I know I talk about that a lot, but some of you are new for joining me, so welcome. But triggers are basically things that will trigger a response in you. And it may be uh, fear, anxiety, worry, different things like that. But those triggers can vary from person to person and situation to situation. um, some people may be highly triggered when it comes to vocational, their jobs, but then they may be less triggered when it comes to their home life or something like that. So that's just something to consider while we are kind of sort of going through this space, you guys. So hopefully I have made it um clear about the angle into why it's so important for you to know your areas that you need to work on, the areas that you need to do better on, because oftentimes, like I said, the result of that is usually a less desirable resort. That's the result. That's the first thing. The second thing is it usually creates this damage that sometimes we are unable to replace or to repair. We all know that words have power, right? So when we act out of emotion or miscommunication or misinterpretations of things, then we also know that we may do, say, and respond in ways that we can't take back. And sometimes we don't always get another opportunity to get something right. We don't always get another chance to rectify something that we may have mismanaged. So it's really important that we get this in check. So if it is something that you do struggle with and you figured out that if you go back and you look at your habits or your patterns, because this is one way that you can identify it. If you go back and you look at your habits and your patterns over the last year or two or whatever, then you'll be able to clearly identify whether there's a little you running the show or a younger version of you running the show, or if it's uh your version of yourself now where you're working on improving, working on getting better. Now, don't get me wrong, even if you yourself are running the show now, but then there's still things that your adult self needs to get in check, then well, then guess what? That means that you need to figure out who's running the show when it comes to your adult self. And what aspects of your adult self do you need to change or shift so that you can still make better choices based off of the healed, you know, place that you're trying to operate from. It's one thing to be old, it's in your 50s and 60s, and you're still living, doing the same thing that you did in your 30s and 40s. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I am not trying to be doing the same this time next year. I do not want to be in the same space, period. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not physically, not mentally, not in my career, not with my relationship with my children or relationships and friendships that I have. I do not want to find myself in the exact same space that I was in last year. Now that will give your girl anxiety. Okay, let me tell you. And I don't struggle with anxiety, but that definitely would give me some form of anxiety because I'm always trying to grow and I'm always trying to move forward with my purpose, move forward in my destiny. And sometimes, if we don't get these things in check, they directly get in the way of us being able to do that. They directly get in the way of it. Like I said, if you go back and look at those patterns and those habits and things that you have had over the last few years or few months or whatever the case may be, you'll notice a trend. You'll start to see that when it comes to relationships, my teenage self is the one that is in this relationship. That's the main person in this relationship. So then once you acknowledge that, okay, how can I move from my teenage self to my adult self with being able to maturely handle this relationship, this friendship, this business partnership, my parent child relationship with your kids? Because I know there are some people that dealt with things as children. And because they dealt with certain things as children, now that they have become parents, they directly inflict that stuff on them. Some examples I could give would be, well, they vicariously live through their children because they weren't able to do something in their lifestyle or their lifetime. So they put pressures or stipulations or different things like that on the kid that kind of takes away from the authentic part of the child. Um, and when I get the teens that come in and they see me, or the 20 somethings that just graduated from college, they're struggling because they can't really figure out life because they have gone on and lived what it was that their parents expected of them to do. And they're not even happy by the time they complete their school journey or they complete certain things. And so we have to be mindful not to project our issues, our traumas, and things like that onto our children. That's the same thing. Um, we have to be mindful of that. And that's just an example of how that can be a detriment to the parent child relationship. Um, and that's several other examples that I could give, but that's a main one that's a running theme. The other thing that I wanted to touch base on is your abilities to communicate. So, depending on which person is running the show, whether that's your younger you or your older you now, one of the biggest things that usually messes a lot of people up is their inabilities to communicate. Now, some of us would say, I am an excellent communicator. I say exactly what I need to say, how I need to say it, and it's just plain and clear and simple. No. Mm-mm. When I sit in my therapy sessions, or when I sit, especially when I sit with couples and I get an opportunity to just kind of sit there and just kind of let them figure out how they're doing things, I find oftentimes that a lot of us, even some of ourselves personally, we listen to respond instead of really listening to understand the person. Sometimes what we end up doing is, um, we end up placing ourselves in this position or this place or this space where we feel like that person automatically clearly understood what it was, and we assume that that person clearly understood what it was that we were saying without even verifying that the person really understood what you were saying. And so we have to be mindful of our communication. We have to be mindful of our body language and different things like that when it comes to communicating in these different types of scenarios. So if you recognize that your communication is not the best, then that would also be something that I would definitely encourage you um, to work on. And even when it comes to emotional intelligence, I know there have been videos circling around this, and I'm going to um work on presenting some stuff. I'm going to have some courses and things coming up, you guys, about a lot of these different topics that I talk about, so you just stay tuned. And I'm definitely going to have a very in-depth course about communication and how it's supposed to work, and some things that we can look out for so that we can learn how to be better communicators, and we can teach our children and those directly connected to us also how to communicate a lot better, and also about safe spaces and a couple of other things. So y'all just stay tuned. But at the same time, the emotional intelligence of things. I know sometimes you may be, this is just in a hypothetical example. If you guys feel like you're in a relationship with somebody and somebody communicates with you and it seems high school, it seems like their communication with you is very high schoolish. Emotional intelligence, I have to question. Um, because there are a lot of people that don't really know how to communicate. They don't know how to express their thoughts. They don't know how to express their feelings. Some people do that very passively meaning they just kind of hang out in the background and just kind of let stuff slide until, I call it tea kettle, until they explode. Or you have those assertive people that can come to you, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. This is the thing that bothered me, this is why it bothered me, and I want to know what we could do about this particular situation. So an assertive way of talking. And then you have people that are passive aggressive with their communication. So they may be, you know, they may handle it in such a way where they say things and it's kind of undermining, or, different things like that, which is not really saying what they need to say, like subliminal shots or different things that people may do. And so I just want you guys to consider all of these things. I even got coursework and stuff on passive aggressive communicate, all kinds of stuff, y'all. So anyway, I wanted you guys to think about that in between now and the next time we chat, or just to continue to journal about that. For those of you that do, ask God, hey Lord, just out of curiosity, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Are there some areas where little Francis needs to grow up so that I can be prepared for this next season that you have me going in? Are there areas where big Francis can learn how to do some things better? Um, are there places or spaces that I need to mature in so that way I can be prepared for all the things that A, I am asking you for, but B, the things that you desire to give to me. So, with that being said, guys, that is literally all that I have for you guys on this evening. I am hoping that this pricks something to get you to start thinking about who's showing up in certain situations and scenarios when you are faced with something. Because if we're not careful and the wrong person shows up, sometimes we don't get do overs. Sometimes we don't get a chance to say, I'm sorry, and people accept it. Sometimes we don't get an opportunity to fix something that went wrong, versus if we would have handled things a little bit differently or been more aware of self and what's going on with us, we may have been able to respond differently, guys. So, again, I want to say thank you guys for joining me this evening on the Mental Wellness Sanctuary with your host, Frances McMillan, here in Jacksonville, Florida, you guys. If you guys are in need of coaching, counseling, or consulting services, I am available for that. I also do really well in admin type of stuff. So if you have a business and you need help with organizing it or starting it up or just making sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, I am definitely able to provide you with that service. You can visit my website to be able to find out more information. You can always schedule, even if you're not sure if you can use my services, you can always schedule a 15-minute consultation with me. I will sit down and chat with you to try to figure out what are your concerns, what is it that you desire to do, and I will see if I'm able to assist you. Again, to remind you guys, counseling and coaching are not the same. So if you are somebody that struggles with something active, say you have active anxiety, depression, you know, personality disorders, different things like that, that is a counseling thing. We're working on fixing something that is wrong. If you're looking for coaching or consulting, consulting is barely this: I will come in, see what you have going on, and kind of sort of help you fix it, but not in an extensive type of way. Just kind of give you a blueprint to follow and you can do it on your own. If you desire the coaching aspect of it, we will spend a period of time, whether that be 3 months, 6 months, 9 or 12, that will allow you to be able to get the specific things that you need done in your business set up the way that it should be able to work like a well-oiled machine, and that way you can go on and be great in whatever business endeavor you have set up for yourself. So when it comes to structures, policies and procedures, the guidelines, especially if you're somebody that's in childcare or mental health field or counseling or whatever, I'm definitely able to help you guys get things started. I've been doing that for an extensive period of time. And for those that I have worked with, especially those in childcare arena, I have some clients that I'm helping get their private practice off the ground for those that are licensed professionals in mental health or social work. But if you're somebody that has a child care center already, or if you're desiring to start one, I am definitely able to kind of help you get everything in that you need in place, from onboarding to food program to Apple accreditation, guidance stars, wherever you are with your child care facility, kindergarten through third grade program, you name it, your girl can do it. Okay. So until next week, guys, I don't have my topics. I'm not settled on one. I know I always say that, but I usually try to wait to see what resonates in my spirit before I get up here and start talking about things. So I will bid you guys a great evening. I hope that you will join me next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. with the Mental Wellness Sanctuary with your host, Frances McMillan. Until next time, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.